All right, let's just go ahead. We'll go ahead and get started. So thank you everybody for joining us today for our third presentation in our ECAP Insights series for automation and AI. Topics that we'll be covering today, we have a lot to cover in 30 minutes, so hopefully we'll have time to get through everything. So we're going to go ahead and get started, but we'll make sure we get you back to your busy day here right around 12:30. We'll take questions in the Q&A as we go through. If you have questions, please put them in the Q&A. We'll answer them at the end. And today, Eileen Riley and Michael McClure are going to join me today in presenting from our automation and AI team. And we'll go ahead and just jump right in if everybody's ready to go.
Sounds great, Michelle.
All right. So today we're going to talk about incorporating AI into automation and how you can take either if you have an automation program, how you take that to the next level, or just if you're learning and kind of getting started, kind of some different ways, different use cases and things you can to engage in the AI and automation space. So we're going to talk about, automation versus AI, leveraging AI within kind of AI and automation together. And then we'll talk a little bit, Michael's going to share some good use cases and ways that leveraging AI with automation. And then we'll talk, takeaway, next steps, and any questions that we have at the end. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Eileen.
Perfect. Thanks, Michelle. And again, happy to have you guys all here. And we're really excited to talk about this topic in particular today. The slide in front of you, we have showed on 2 of the previous webinars. One of the reasons we wanted to show it, especially on this one, is just to mention that no matter where you are on your automation journey or kind of that spectrum from just starting out with RPA or really starting to incorporate AI into your journey, we thought that it is important to keep, weaving in those key pieces of the success of your automation program. Those ones being identifying your key business metrics, making sure that you're always kind of pointing back to them, making sure that you have that North Star that's always your goal. Process identification and prioritization is always important, whether you're just beginning or you're 3 or 4 years in, really heavily incorporating AI. It's still really important to be, focusing on those key processes. And then feasibility and value. That's another one that's really important throughout your entire journey, making sure that you're always tying back the processes to that value, especially to those business metrics. So again, a slight recap, but want to make sure that everyone realizes that these are some of the important things, no matter where you are in your journey, it's important to focus on. Right. And then here's just kind of a good, I think, kind of spectrum. All the way on the left, you have your RPA. This really is kind of your foundational level processes, really those task-based, mundane processes that you're going to be focusing on. And then as you go towards the right with document extraction, incorporating workflows, and then intelligent automation, this is kind of that spectrum that we're talking about, really starting at that foundation or kind of that base level of RPA and building on top of it those additional pieces. And this is some of the AI that we're going to get into in more depth, especially with some of those use cases. But again, just wanting to focus on that this is a journey and a spectrum from one end to the other, and everybody's going to be at a different place within that journey and within that spectrum. Right. Perfect. And then this is really diving into kind of the nuts and bolts of what we are excited to talk to you about today is really what is AI. I'm sure that a lot of you have heard, AI is sort of one of the new buzzwords. But in particular, we really want to talk about how it ties back into automation. And some of the next slides will get into some of those differences between AI and automation. But, kind of at a really high level, AI really is referring to the ability of a computer system to try and mimic the problem solving and decision-making capabilities of humans. It's not just doing task-based kind of, rote manual processes. It's actually taking that and doing something with it. It really is that decision-making capability that really distinguishes AI from automation. And you see some examples here: computer vision, data science, NLP or natural language processing. These are some of those key ways in which AI is taking automation to that next level. I think kind of the second piece to what is AI, it's really enabling those machines to perform tasks that generally would be done by a human. And again, it's the decision making, the problem solving. That's really what is taking this AI piece of automation and really kind of supercharging it, if you will.
Right. So, companies all over the world are recognizing the benefits of Gen AI and just AI in general, right? So when combining that AI with automation technology can really help clients improve interactions with their customers, partners, and just boost operational efficiencies and productivity overall. So as a result, business leaders are increasingly asked how they use AI to transform their organizations. I know it's a buzzword within the C-suite. 75% of CEOs are saying that they need to remain competitive, that they need to be leveraging AI or generative AI somewhere within their organization. And I'm guessing a lot of you folks have been hearing some of that from your leadership as well, and how you can leverage more and more of that within your organization to build productivity. Just that growing adoption of AI across industries just reflects their kind of the role of those large language models and LLMs within the enterprise to drive kind of a new era, essentially, of work and productivity across industries. So just everyone's talking about it. You're probably hearing more and more about it, but it's definitely being talked about, and people are being challenged within organizations to do more. Really this idea of augmented or generative AI, leveraging augmented workforce. It's really just where foundation models have become kind of indispensable to the, customers, patients, employees, you name it. And that, most humans will be interacting at some point with a personal assistant, probably are already today, right? But, it's unlikely that they're going to be able to use it in every part of your job, but it just is a better way to get work done, from writing emails to supporting your customers through better customer service, automating work, as we talked about, data extraction and search. There's all kinds of different ways that you can leverage this across your organization. But essentially, 40% we're seeing across is like a 40% improvement for skilled workers that use Gen AI versus departments and companies that don't. So you can see that obviously the productivity lift here is what we're going to continue to see grow. I would envision this number to continue to grow as we continue to mature. And then, just advances in this has really just changed the way people work across all different areas, right? So, productivity is expected to be kind of that primary driver in economic value. If you're looking at, where you can find ways to do essentially more with less, estimated some of the savings and efficiencies that can be built across various departments. Here you can see kind of leading the charges, 63% in IT, but really great numbers. Customer service is another great place to insert AI and automated workflows, all the way down, really across the organization. So, really the message here is there's ways to leverage this across your organization to help build efficiencies there.
All right, perfect. Thanks for that good overview, Michelle. Appreciate it. Here we have, kind of touching upon again the difference really between automation and AI. Michael in a minute is going to get into some of the use cases and sort of practical uses of AI, but thought it was important to really kind of differentiate between, we have sort of your base, or again your foundation of automation, and then you have building upon that the artificial intelligence. And one of the key things that I think to pick out, especially from this table, is that a lot of times what it comes down to, AI and automation are very similar. They have a lot of ways that they overlap and interact. The main difference being some of the characteristics and then how you apply them. Those really are the two differentiating characteristics between them. So you have on the left, a lot of different ways. So purpose, complexity, adaptability. These are ways, in which we can kind of derive some of that value from them. But let's just take an example for the purpose. For automation, it really is to perform those repetitive tasks without variation. That really is what RPA is set out to do. Taking it again to that next level, The AI really is to mimic the human cognitive functions and take, data and analyze that, learn from that data. So I think that this is a really good table that really does kind of break down all of the differences between the two. Again, knowing that they overlap and interact very heavily, but they do have different purposes, and can help add value in different ways depending, where you're wanting to see value, what you're wanting to focus on in your organization. So not wanting to go through everything, I know that this can be a little bit wordy, but we will send out this deck afterwards. And I think that this is a good table to be able to reference. Again, just to kind of dive further into those differences and how they can be used differently as well. So I think we're going to dive into some use cases, and I will hand it over to Michael.
Awesome. Thanks, Eileen. So anyone that's joined the other sessions knows that I'm a technical lead here at eCapital, and that means I get to work really closely with these tools and implement them. So I know over probably the past year or so, everyone has played around with the ChatGPT or, Adobe's image generation and had a lot of fun with that. And I know I use it a lot personally for code generation. But kind of the question is how do we take this really cool new technology and actually implement it in your organization at a more larger formal scale? Right. So I'm going to be going through really the top three use cases that we're seeing right now in the market and going through some examples of that and the value. So with that, first one I'm going to dive into is going to be intelligent document processing. So this has probably been around the longest, and you're probably familiar with this, but one of the key challenges when it comes to document processing is being able to action the data and extract the data in a meaningful way. So the example I'm going to go through is going to be traditional invoice processing, where depending on your organization, you could have 1,000 to hundreds of thousands of invoices coming across where people are receiving those, organizing them, and then actually inputting them into secondary systems, right? And that can be a really time-consuming process depending on your volume. Something that is in the past 5 years or so, we've really seen a lot of enhancements in is being able to extract that data from documents and then use typical RPA to actually perform that secondary data entry. So we're able to kind of use a optical character recognition or OCR combined with AI to really come up with advanced models that are really dynamic. So on the next slide, it'll kind of explain what we've seen here in the next, or what we've seen in the past 5 years or so. That traditional OCR, or the technique to extract information from documents, really isn't very robust. It's based on positions of where things are in the document, and if things change, then that all has to be redeveloped. What we've seen now is really quick ways to spin up models where we're able to interact with these OCR models and say, hey, I'm looking for invoice number extracted for me. And then over time, it begins to learn what you mean by invoice number and actually improves itself. That's really great because as we go to have a bunch of documents from electronic ones to handwriting, they vary a lot. And having the AI-powered OCR allows it to increase its efficiency to actually successfully extracting that data. So on the next slide, I have a quick example of what this looks like. So this is a basic invoice document. And typically what we'd want to do in an automated process is extract all the information from this document, such as the invoice number, the date, any line items on there, and obviously the prices and amounts, go into an ERP or any secondary system and enter that data. Now we're able to, like I said, process almost any type of document and use AI to enhance these over time so that we're able to process over 80% of all documents, whether they're electronic or handwritten, successfully. So this has been a huge win over the past 5 years in just trying to automate all the different PDFs, or checks that your organization receives, and keep track of them. So that's kind of the first use case. It's been around the longest. Going on to what I think is a little bit more interesting is going to be closer to that generative AI. So I'm going to be walking through an example we had with a client in financial services where they were required to keep customer information by law, and they were going through a system migration. So their ultimate goal was to take all this regulatory information and move it from one system to another in an organized format. The problem that they had is that this information was being gathered from customers themselves inputting information into a just free text field. So from an automation perspective, this is really challenging as a developer because there's an infinite number of ways that you can go out and type in this information. Are you separating it by commas? Are you using quotation marks? Are you using 1, 2, 3, 4? And as a developer, you can go out and write hundreds of lines of code, but someone will always come up with a new way to input that information you didn't think of. So in order to solve this challenge, we actually incorporated natural language processing, which is able to interpret text similar to a human, like Eileen mentioned earlier, and actually reformat that into something that's organized and meaningful to the business and us trying to actually utilize that information. So I have an example of what this looked like using some dummy data. And if you go to the next slide, yep, right here. So on the left side here, we kind of have 3 examples of what some of this information looked like that came across. So this first one, we have Jane Doe typed out all her work history. Our second person, John Smith, decided to use bullet points to type out his work history. And then Emma Johnson did a table, which is great, but she actually left out some information and didn't fill out her name on all the columns. So as humans, it's really easy for us to interpret this information and go out and type it all into an Excel sheet. But when you have thousands and thousands of customers you need to do this for, this is a really time-consuming task that no one wants to do during a migration. So what we're able to do is actually use a natural language processing to interpret all this data and then format it into a clean Excel sheet or a SQL database, wherever it needs to go, that then can be imported into another system or just referenced and done analysis on. So a really common use case is dealing with unstructured data. Again, this is really hard from a basic programming perspective to solve, but with AI, and it's really quick to spin up models that can interpret this kind of out of the box. So that's exciting. Cool. And then the last one that we're actually seeing a lot of, and you're probably familiar with this if you go to Amazon or try to interact with your bank, there's always a chatbot that comes up. And if you look down at the bottom, this is kind of how AI is changing the chatbot experience. On the left side here, we kind of have a, hey, how can I help you today? And then we have some buttons that they're wanting us to press. The user decides to type in a prompt that says, when will I get a refund for my item? Because this is really rigid in this non-AI form, it just doesn't understand what that request is and says you have to select from this predefined list. And chatbots are great when they work, but when they don't, they're incredibly frustrating, right? So on the right side here, we kind of have an AI version of that chatbot. So how can I help you today? And we give it that same prompt. And instead of saying, hey, you didn't do exactly what we wanted you to do, I'm able to interpret that and actually go out and find your order number and give that information back. So you probably see this again a lot in customer service, but where we're actually seeing this a lot today is internal chatbots. So you can think if you work in sales, you can maybe go to your internal chatbot and say, I want to create an opportunity in Salesforce, and that'll happen automatically. And then in the same interface, someone from operations could say, hey, we actually need to create a purchase order for this part, right? And at the same time, that automation will go out, execute, create that purchase order, and then return the results back to the user without them ever having to leave this interface. So again, I think this is a really cool use case because you're familiar with it, but I think over the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to see a lot more of these internal and have a lot of kind of built-in tools and automations for specifically, your organizations and what you're doing often. So that's kind of the 3, I would say, primary use cases that we're seeing out there today. So just kind of wanted to share that. Don't know if any of that resonates with you, but if anything does, obviously we'd love to chat about it and share more. So Eileen, I'll throw it back to you now, or Michelle.
Yep, I think it's up for Michelle on to the next one.
I'm on mute, so I'll go ahead and sorry about that. Thanks, Michael. Some great examples. And I think just kind of to layer on to what you said about kind of internal use, we're seeing other, similar process and similar results, but around like Ask HR. So we're implementing, putting these types of workflows and automations on top of your HR systems or your, various service systems within IT, help desks, things like that. So just some kind of endless possibilities here, but some great use cases. So thank you, Michael. And kind of as we get ready to close here, I just wanted to kind of highlight just kind of thinking about what from an enterprise level, as you're thinking about looking at starting and scaling an automation and AI roadmap within your organization, I mean, there's some things that you want to make sure you're continuing to think about, right? So, from a strategy perspective and value, continuing to think about the metrics and the value, the ROI. It's pretty incredible, some of the ROI that these use cases are bringing and value they're bringing to organizations. So this is really helpful when you're looking at proving out or being able to kind of go and ask for some of these things right within your organization, is to help kind of prove that ROI can be pretty incredible. So something to just really think about as you're putting together your use cases, making sure you're including that. Thinking about from a technology and data perspective, ensuring that you're aligning to the right technology for your needs. There's a lot of options out there in the market. Something we can help consult and guide on, but do your homework. Think about, there's different obviously models and to be used, whether you're talking LLMs. There's some that are better for others. So, doing your research to understand which model best fits your needs as well. And then kind of just integrating all of that with your infrastructure and your other systems and kind of how all of that plays together. So design, I think this one's really important to think about the user personas, and if you're thinking about, especially like from a customer service rep, internal or external within your organization, right, is thinking about what their experience is now, what that is going to look like, and how you can help make that better, right? And documenting that, and not necessarily implementing a process as is, really taking a step back and looking at, is there areas within that process to build efficiencies in or change? And that's really a good time to look at that as you're thinking about, applying automation or AI to some of those processes. And then just from an operating model perspective, just thinking about responsibly scaling. So governance and making sure that you've got, policies in place and ethically that these models are being leveraged, and these AI models are being leveraged, and have a view of governance with that as well. So they're not giving back bad answers to your customers, which obviously creates a bad experience, but also just information that is just flat out wrong. Right. So testing is a hugely important part of all of this as you think about rolling some of this stuff out. And then just really kind of thinking about just overall talent and culture, like the culture and readiness for this within your organization. I mean, change is always, as we know, it's challenging. And so a lot of this there's a lot of sometimes, reserve to do some of these things and what that means for certain people's jobs. And so really, helping people understand where you can look at redeploying some of those resources if you're freeing up resources within your organization through some of this automation and AI. So, and just always have that change management lens on, I think, and awareness I never assume that this is, people are going to be open to change, right? And so there's always an element of change management that needs to be considered, and help guide folks through that. So just some things to kind of think about as you're starting this, any sort of automation or AI project. All right. Here, I'm just going to remind, obviously, I think you guys that have been with us for the last couple of sessions know, Eileen and team have a very robust set of skills around automation and AI, and we, eCapital, can help kind of guide or support or lead in kind of any of these areas, from just getting started and you're looking at use cases to getting in and helping you develop, be extra sets of hands as you're learning how to do some of this and training. Maybe you're ready to set up a center of excellence because you're at the breaking point of scale and understanding how you can continue to grow this across your organization. Or maybe you have something that's been implemented and you need to kind of go back and take a look at it from a health check perspective. Maybe dust some processes off and see if there's more efficient ways to do it now with the new technology. We can kind of help with some of that stuff too. And then, as you're kicking off and looking, we also work with customers on proof of concepts and kind of helping them understand, bringing their vision of their use cases to life as they're evaluating solutions. So anything there, Eileen or Michael, you'd like to add to that is just kind of how we can support, them on their journey?
No, I think, just kind of, as an ending piece, we really can meet you where you are. As Michelle mentioned, between myself, Michael, and the rest of our whole team on the automation side, we have experience in pretty much every piece of the software development lifecycle. So again, can kind of meet you where you're at and help you grow to where you want to be. And that is a very I think kind of personal choice and decision between every company, but we're happy to jump in whenever and wherever we can.
Thank you. And this is just kind of just a reminder, mark your calendars. We'll have another webinar. We kind of doubled up here in June and July, but we'll have a little break until September where we'll have our last and final session here of the year. Definitely still looking for content. If there's anything specific, whether that's use cases or industry or something specific you'd like to dig in deeper or want to learn more about, absolutely reach out to me or anyone on the team and let us know. We'd love to be able to provide content that, is relevant to you. So definitely provide that. If there's any questions that anybody has kind of on this content or just maybe anything in the automation space, go ahead and drop that in the Q&A. We'll give you a minute or two to do that, but just really looking to kind of bring this home here with our last session. So hopefully bring some good content to you as well. And address any other questions. If you're not comfortable, handling online here, we can definitely take offline as well. So please definitely don't hesitate to reach out we can help with anything as well. But otherwise, I think, let's see, let's just check one more time here. Does it look like I have anything in the Q&A? So if you didn't make it and we're going to wrap up here, you can go ahead and just shoot. My contact information is on the bottom here. Go ahead and shoot me a note and I'm happy to get that addressed. Otherwise, I guess enjoy the rest of your summer and we'll see you in September. So Thanks everybody and have a good day.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.